No, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it as a snide remark. I mean, I don't know whether they caught him in California or who they served Mickey Rudin. I don't know.
Hollywood has always had its secrets. Behind the glamour and the red carpets, there existed a shadow world where organized crime held real power over careers, fortunes, and lives.
Have the password. Oh, but then what do you need it again? How do I know you have the password? Aha!
For decades, the mob didn't just run casinos and nightclubs. They controlled record labels, manipulated studio contracts, and decided who got to be a star and who disappeared. Some celebrities went along with it. Others refused to play by those rules. And when you said no to the wrong people, the consequences were brutal and sometimes deadly. What happened when fame collided with the most dangerous men in America? 1. Joe E. Louis, the comedian who wouldn't listen. In 1927, Joe E. Louis was the hottest cabaret comedian in Chicago. He packed the Green Mill Cocktail Lounge every night, a venue partly owned by Machine Gun Jack McGurn, one of Al Capone's most feared enforcers. Louis was making good money, but when a rival club called the New Rendezvous offered him more, he took the deal. McGurn warned him not to go. Louis ignored the warning. He thought he was untouchable because of his fame. He was wrong. Early one morning, 3 men broke into his hotel room. They beat him unconscious with pistols, then took out a hunting knife and slashed his throat from ear to ear. They cut his tongue and left him in a pool of blood, assuming he would die. Louis survived, but barely. He spent months in the hospital and had to relearn how to speak and sing. His voice was never the same. The attack destroyed his career for years. Eventually, he made a comeback, performing with a raspy voice and self-deprecating humor about his scars. Frank Sinatra later played him in the film The Joker is Wild. Louis lived, but he paid a price that lasted the rest of his life. 2. Sammy Davis Jr. Love, race, and threats. In the late 1950s, Sammy Davis Jr. was one of the most talented performers in America. He was also having a secret affair with Kim Novak, the biggest star at Columbia Pictures. The studio head, Harry Cohn, was furious. Novak was white, Davis was black, and in that era, the relationship was seen as a career-ending scandal for her. Cohn had deep connections to organized crime. He called Sam Giancana, the boss of the Chicago outfit, and told him to handle it. Giancana sent men to deliver a message to Davis. They told him that if he didn't end the relationship immediately, they would take out his one good eye. Davis had already lost his left eye in a car accident years earlier. The threat was specific and terrifying. They also said they'd break his legs if he refused to cooperate. Davis was given an ultimatum: marry a black woman within days or face the consequences. Terrified and with no real options, Davis married a dancer named Lorraine White in a hasty ceremony in 1958. The marriage was a sham and lasted less than a year, but it worked. The mob backed off and Novak's career was protected. Davis never forgot what they made him do. 3. Steven Seagal, the action star in a Brooklyn backroom. By the early 2000s, Steven Seagal was a major action star, but his film career was starting to fade. He had been working with a producer named Julius Nasso, who had ties to the Gambino crime family. When Seagal tried to end their business relationship, things got dangerous. Nasso didn't take the breakup well. He brought in Anthony "Sonny" Ciccone, a Gambino captain, to convince Seagal to keep making movies with them. Seagal was summoned to a meeting in the back of a Brooklyn Italian restaurant. Ciccone sat across from him and laughed. He told Seagal to look at him when he spoke and said they were proud people who expected respect. The demand was simple: work with Nasso on 4 more films, and they'd split the profits. If Seagal refused, the implication was clear. They wanted $150,000 per film as their cut. Seagal, to his credit, didn't comply quietly. He went to the FBI and agreed to testify. His testimony helped convict Ciccone and others in a major racketeering case. The mob reportedly put out threats on his life afterward, but Seagal had made his choice. He'd rather face them in court than be extorted for the rest of his career. 4. Al Martino, the real Johnny Fontaine. Al Martino had a beautiful voice and a growing career in the early 1950s. He recorded hits and played sold-out clubs, but his contract was secretly bought up by mobsters who wanted control over his earnings. When Martino tried to buy his way out and manage his own career, they refused. In 1952, 2 enforcers confronted him at a nightclub and beat him badly. The message was clear: he didn't own himself. Terrified, Martino fled the country. He spent years in exile in England, unable to return to the United States or advance his career. Eventually, he reached out to Russell Bufalino, a powerful mob boss in Pennsylvania, and asked for permission to come home. Bufalino agreed, and Martino was allowed back. When Francis Ford Coppola was casting The Godfather, Martino was given the role of Johnny Fontaine, the singer whose career is saved by a mob favor. It was art imitating his own life. Martino played the part convincingly because he had lived it. He spent the rest of his career looking over his shoulder, grateful to be alive and working, but always aware of who really held the power. 5. Jackie Mason, joking about the wrong man. Jackie Mason was a rising comedian in the 1960s, known for his sharp wit and fearless material. In 1966, he made a mistake. He started telling jokes about Frank Sinatra and his marriage to Mia Farrow during his stand-up routine. Sinatra was notoriously sensitive about his personal life, and he had friends in very low places. Mason received anonymous phone calls telling him to stop. He didn't. The jokes continued. One night, a man showed up at Mason's hotel room, forced his way in, and punched him repeatedly in the face. Mason's nose was broken, his cheekbone crushed. He required surgery and was left with lasting damage. Mason always believed the attack was ordered by people close to Sinatra as a warning. He never pressed charges and never got a clear answer about who sent the attacker, but he stopped making jokes about Sinatra. The message had been delivered, and Mason understood it. Years later, he would joke darkly about the incident in his act, but the fear was real. He'd crossed a line he didn't fully understand until it was too late. 6. Tommy James, trapped by Roulette Records. Tommy James and the Shondells had massive hits in the late 1960s. Songs like Hanky Panky and Crimson and Clover topped the charts. But behind the scenes, James was trapped. He was signed to Roulette Records, a label owned by Morris Levy, a man with deep ties to the Genovese crime family. Levy was one of the most feared men in the music industry. He controlled jukeboxes, radio promotion, and distribution through intimidation and violence. James wanted to leave the label and collect the millions in royalties he was owed. Levy made it clear that wasn't going to happen. James was told directly that if he tried to walk away, he would be killed. For years, he worked under that threat, churning out hits while Levy and his associates pocketed the money. James estimated he was cheated out of around $40 million. He was too afraid to fight back. Eventually, a mob war broke out, and Levy's attention shifted. James used the chaos as cover and fled to Nashville, effectively disappearing from Levy's reach. He survived, but he never got his money. Levy was untouchable for decades until he was finally convicted of extortion in the 1980s. By then, the damage to artists like James was irreversible. 7. Thelma Todd, the actress who said no. Thelma Todd was a beloved comedic actress in the 1930s, known for her roles alongside the Marx Brothers and Laurel and Hardy. She also owned a popular seaside cafe in Pacific Palisades. The location was prime real estate, and Lucky Luciano, one of the most powerful mob bosses in the country, wanted to use the upper floor for illegal gambling. Todd refused. She didn't want her business turned into a front for organized crime. Luciano and his associates allegedly pressured her repeatedly. She kept saying no. In December 1935, Todd was found dead inside her car in a garage. The death was ruled carbon monoxide poisoning, either suicide or an accident. But the circumstances were suspicious. There were bruises on her body, and some witnesses reported seeing her with mobsters the night before. The case was never solved. Many Hollywood historians believe Todd was murdered because she wouldn't cooperate. The official story never made sense to those who knew her. She was successful, happy, and had no reason to kill herself. The Hot Toddy case remains one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in Hollywood history, a reminder that saying no to the wrong people could cost you everything. 8. Frank Sinatra, when the chairman lost his empire. Frank Sinatra walked a tightrope his entire career. He was friendly with mob bosses like Sam Giancana, and they helped him when he needed it. But in the early 1960s, Sinatra made a promise he couldn't keep. He told Giancana that his friend John F. Kennedy would ease up on organized crime prosecutions after becoming president. It didn't happen. In fact, Robert Kennedy launched the most aggressive campaign against the Mafia in American history. Giancana felt used and betrayed. Then, Sinatra made another mistake. He hosted Giancana at his Cal Neva Lodge in Lake Tahoe, violating Nevada gaming regulations. The scandal went public. Sinatra was forced to surrender his gaming license and sell his share of the casino. It cost him millions and ended his dream of being a major player in the Nevada casino industry. Worse, Giancana was reportedly furious enough to consider having Sinatra killed. Cooler heads prevailed, but Sinatra's relationship with the mob changed forever. He was no longer untouchable. He had become a liability, and the Mafia didn't tolerate liabilities. The Cal Neva incident marked the end of Sinatra's reign as both a mob insider and a casino mogul. 9. Jimmy Roselli, blacklisted for pride. Jimmy Roselli had a voice that could rival Sinatra's. He was the other great crooner from Hoboken, and in some Italian-American neighborhoods he was even more popular. But Roselli had a problem. He refused to play the game. When mob bosses asked him to perform at charity events for free or demanded a cut of his earnings, Roselli told them no. He wanted to control his own career. That decision destroyed his chances at mainstream stardom. The mob controlled jukeboxes, radio playlists, and club bookings across the country. Roselli's records were pulled. Radio stations stopped playing his music. Clubs refused to book him. He was effectively blacklisted, not by the government, but by organized crime. Roselli kept performing, mostly in smaller venues and for his loyal fans, but he never got the national recognition his talent deserved. He remained bitter about it for the rest of his life. In interviews, he would talk openly about how the Mafia controlled the music industry and how standing up to them had cost him everything. Roselli died in 2011, largely forgotten by the mainstream, but still revered by those who knew what he'd sacrificed. 10. Wayne Newton, Mr. Las Vegas Goes to Court. Wayne Newton was the biggest act in Las Vegas by the 1980s. He was Mr. Las Vegas, performing thousands of shows and earning millions. In 1980, he bought the Aladdin Hotel, but the deal came with problems. Newton was receiving threats and didn't know how to handle them. He reached out to a man named Guido Penosi, a mob associate, for help. Penosi intervened, and the threats stopped. But when law enforcement started investigating the Aladdin and its mob ties, Newton's connection to Penosi became a liability. Newton testified in court to clear his name, explaining that he'd only contacted Penosi out of fear. The mob saw it differently. They considered his testimony a betrayal. Newton began receiving death threats. The Gambino family reportedly discussed putting out a contract on him. For a time, Newton lived under heavy security, unsure if he'd be killed for cooperating with authorities. Eventually, the heat died down, but the incident was a stark reminder. In Las Vegas, the mob's influence was everywhere, and even the biggest stars weren't immune to the consequences of getting too close or too far from the wrong people. 11. Mario Lanza, the tenor who fled to Italy. Mario Lanza was one of the greatest voices of the 20th century. His operatic tenor brought him fame in Hollywood and on the concert stage. But in the early 1950s, Lanza was pressured by members of the Lucchese crime family. They wanted him to perform at a tribute event connected to mob figures and to sign over management rights to people they controlled. Lanza refused. He wasn't going to let the Mafia dictate his career. The response was immediate. Lanza faced intimidation, bad press, and planted stories designed to ruin his reputation. He became paranoid and depressed. Fearing for his life, he fled to Italy in 1957. He believed he'd be safer in Europe, away from the reach of American organized crime. But the stress took its toll. Lanza struggled with weight gain, drinking, and health problems. In 1959, at the age of 38, he died suddenly in Rome. The official cause was a pulmonary embolism, but rumors persisted for decades that his death wasn't natural. Some believed he was poisoned, or that the constant pressure from the mob had literally killed him. There was never any proof, but those close to him always suspected he'd been targeted. Lanza's death remains one of the most mysterious and tragic losses in entertainment history. 12. George Reeves, Superman's Fatal Romance. George Reeves was television's first Superman, beloved by children across America. But behind the scenes, his personal life was complicated and dangerous. For years, Reeves had been involved in an affair with Toni Mannix, the wife of Eddie Mannix. Eddie was a powerful fixer at MGM with deep connections to organized crime, including relationships with East Coast mob families. Reeves eventually tried to end the affair. He wanted to marry a younger woman and move on with his life. Toni was devastated, and Eddie was reportedly furious. In June 1959, Reeves was found dead in his bedroom with a gunshot wound to the head. The death was ruled a suicide, but the evidence didn't add up. The gun had no fingerprints. The bullet casing was found under Reeves's body, which was physically impossible if he'd shot himself. There were bruises on his body that suggested a struggle. Many people close to the case believed Reeves was murdered, possibly on Eddie Mannix's orders as revenge for breaking Tony's heart. The official story was never questioned publicly and the case was closed. But Hollywood insiders knew better. Reeves had crossed a man with the power to make problems disappear, and he paid for it with his life. 13. Desi Arnaz, the Cuban who fought back. Desi Arnaz was more than just Ricky Ricardo. He was a shrewd businessman and the head of Desilu Studios, one of the most powerful production companies in television. When he was filming The Long Long Trailer in the early 1950s, mob-controlled unions and local heavies tried to shake him down. They demanded protection money to keep production running smoothly. Arnaz, who came from a wealthy and politically connected Cuban family, wasn't intimidated. He refused to pay. The mob didn't take kindly to that. Arnaz faced labor disruptions, sabotage on set, and constant harassment designed to slow down production and cost him money. But Arnaz fought back. He hired his own security, negotiated directly with workers, and refused to give in to extortion. He was tough, and he made it clear he wasn't going to be pushed around. Eventually, the pressure eased, but it cost him time and money. Arnaz's willingness to stand up to organized crime was rare in Hollywood, where most executives quietly paid up to avoid trouble. He proved that it was possible to fight back, but it required courage, resources, and a willingness to accept the consequences. 14. Elia Kazan and Bud Schulberg, exposing the waterfront. In 1954, director Elia Kazan and writer Bud Schulberg made a film that challenged the Mafia directly. On the Waterfront told the story of corruption and mob control over the longshoremen unions in New York and New Jersey. It was based on real testimony and real lives destroyed by organized crime. The mob knew what the film was about, and they didn't want it made. During production in Hoboken, Kazan and Schulberg faced constant threats. Mobsters disrupted filming by creating loud noise near the set, intimidating crew members, and trying to shut down locations. They wanted to send a message. Telling the truth about how the Mafia controlled unions and exploited workers was a direct violation of Omerta, the code of silence. But Kazan and Schulberg pushed forward. The film was released, won 8 Academy Awards, and became one of the most important movies in American cinema. It exposed the brutality and corruption of organized crime to a mainstream audience. The mob hated it, but they couldn't stop it. The film's success proved that even the most powerful criminal organizations couldn't silence the truth when people were brave enough to tell it. 15. Fats Domino, robbed of millions. Fats Domino was one of the pioneers of rock and roll. His music sold millions of records and influenced generations of musicians. But like many black artists in the 1950s and 60s, Domino was signed to labels controlled or infiltrated by organized crime. Morris Levy, the same man who trapped Tommy James, was one of several mob-connected executives who exploited early rock and roll stars. Domino tried to assert control over his publishing rights and get the royalties he was owed. The response was always the same: threats, intimidation, and stonewalling. It's estimated that Domino was cheated out of millions of dollars over the course of his career. The mob controlled distribution, radio play, and contracts, and they used that power to rob artists of their earnings. Domino never got his money back. Neither did Little Richard, Chuck Berry, or countless other musicians who built the foundation of rock and roll. The generational wealth that should have gone to these artists and their families was stolen by men who contributed nothing but fear. Domino continued performing into old age, loved by fans but never properly compensated for the empire he helped build. His story is a reminder that organized crime didn't just hurt individuals, it robbed entire communities of the wealth and recognition they deserved. The line between fame and danger was thinner than most people realized. For every star who played along, there were others who refused, and their lives were never the same. Some survived, some fled, and some never got the chance to tell their own stories.